The Barberspan 500 in the maize fields of the Western Transvaal is always one of the highlights of the South African Off-Road Championship. This year, the Barberspan formed the second round of the National Championship. After one event in the special vehicle category, Stan Illman and Frans Stangl topped the championship standings ahead of Port Elizabeth crew Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton, with Wade Perrins and Derek Frankenberg in third place. The competition is also tough in the special vehicle class, with Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne adding to the interest with the debut of the new Motortech Raceco imported from the United States.
Look, if it's wet weather, we've got another set of tyres, a special kind of compound in that, but when you come to Barberspan, you've got to be prepared for those type of things. It wouldn't worry us too much. Certainly it'll help the 4x4s a bit, but the space frames will be there.
The Sulwald brothers, Herman and Karl Heinz, are the reigning South African special vehicle champions and were among the pre-race favourites. The pair were in impressive form in the 50-kilometre time trial in the Sulwald Transport Raceco, fitted with a Rover V8 engine.
The car is very nice. We're testing new tyres in front, Michelin tyres, and they work quite well. We're quite happy with it. The handling of the car is much improved from last year.
There were problems after the time trial for Marius and Margie Burain, with technical crew working late into the night to change the gearbox on the Toyota Raceco.
You have to take it easy, I think, in this game, otherwise I think you've done yourself in trouble to break the car.
Rustenburg 400 winners Stan Illman and Frans Stangl were also full of confidence, with the Barberspan maintaining the off-road tradition of early morning starts.
Well, today I think it's a long day, we're going to take it easy. We've got a reasonably good starting position. There's going to be a lot of dust, and hopefully the wind will blow a little bit. But I reckon if we take it easy, we've got a good chance. We messed up Rustenburg, so we must try and keep this one together.
The father and son team of Frans Chepek Sr. and Frans Jr. were also among the pre-race favourites, with Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne unknown quantities in the Motortech Raceco, which was having its first outing. Where Herman and Karl-Heinz Sulwald are concerned, there are no frills to off-road racing. The two brothers are spectacular performers, and it was both speed and consistency that took them to the South African Championship last season. Stan Illman and Frans Stangl got their season off to a flying start when they won the Rustenburg 400. The pair are motorsport stalwarts, and a year or two ago competed in the London to Sydney Marathon in a Porsche. They took a little time to settle down at Barberspan, and a slight miscalculation cost them a few seconds early on in the race. The special vehicle category also being decided on corrected time, little mistakes like that can prove costly. It was still early in the race, but Illman and Stangl were already coming under pressure from Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in the Motortech Raceco, which incorporates all the latest technology from the United States. The Chepek father and son team were not far behind Schilling and Thorne in the V-Motors Raceco. The Chepeks looked to be sticking to a game plan, calling for a cautious start. There's nothing cautious where veteran Linton Draper's concerned, and he and Peter Smith were chasing after the Chepeks in the awesome Draper Excavator hire Raceco. Crew in a hurry were Nardus Alberts and Peter Mathieu in the Rapsa Raceco. The pair have not had much luck in recent races and were looking for a good result. Also going along steadily were Nick Harper and Richard Hill in the Pro-Am Electronics Raceco. Port Elizabeth crew Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton were having another steady run in the Queen's Motor Spares Raceco, with Botswana pair JJ Volmerans and Steve Cooper, the surprise package in the race, hot on their heels in another Raceco. Youngsters Craig Draper and Robin Houghton were also on a charge in the Draper Excavator hire Raceco, with Max Moore going along steadily at the front of Class B in the VW Panzerwagen. Moore was being chased by Richard Carolyn in the Lubrication Equipment Raceco, with Carolyn the first of the single-seater runner. The cars generated plenty of interest among the local youngsters, with John Rowe, with rally driver Tony Ball doing the navigating, starting to work his way through the field. While the Natal crew were steadily going about their business, Stan Illman and Franz Stangl had overtaken the Sulwald brothers to be first on the road. The pair were now into their stride and starting to take a grip on the race. A tremendous battle had developed between the Chepex and Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne. The Motortech raceco had closed right up on the V-Motors car, with Schilling and Thorne starting to look for a way past. The Motortech entry was showing plenty of potential in its first outing. Both the Chepex and Schilling and Thorne had moved ahead of the Sulwald brothers, who were battling to make up lost ground. The chase was on, and the Sulwalds had thrown caution to the winds and were going like the clappers. It was spectacular stuff. The Sulwalds got on with the business of chasing the Chepex and the Motortech car. Linton Draper and Peter Smith were having a good run in the Draper Excavator hire raceco, which in the past had often suffered from reliability problems. There was no hint of any problems this time out, but not far behind the Draper-Smith combination were Nick Harper and Richard Hill in the Pro-Am Electronics raceco. A good dice had also developed between Botswana pair, JJ Volmerans and Steve Cooper, who moved ahead of Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton from the Eastern Cape. While the two crews indulged in their little personal battle, Max Moore was still going strong at the front of Class B in the Panzer wagon. Like Moore, up ahead of him, Richard Carolyn in the single-seater lubrication equipment raceco was having to both drive and navigate, but was doing a pretty good job of it. Carolyn was being chased by Natal crew John Rowe and Tony Ball, who lost a few seconds when they ran into temporary difficulties with the route schedule. Behind Rowe and Ball, the second Draper Excavator hire car in the hands of Craig Draper and Robin Houghton was still going well, with the race developing into an intriguing contest. The father and daughter combination of Niels and Carla Eriksson in the VW Beetle were also going along steadily. They decided discretion was the better part of valor when confronted by a small donga. The Erikssons were being chased by another off-road veteran, Harry Roscoe, in the Protea Playing Cards raceco. Roscoe's also not had much luck in recent events and was another who was hoping for a good result. Running at the back of the Class A field in an aging Orco, Jaco Smit and Johan Flock politely waved Roscoe through when the single-seater raceco appeared out of nowhere. Roscoe was later to retire after crashing head-on into Max Moore's Panzer wagon. Back at the service area at the end of the first of the two 250-kilometre loops that made up the course, there was plenty of frantic activity as one by one the cars appeared on the scene to take on petrol. More often than not, some quick running repairs were also needed. The Sulwald brothers had lost valuable time on the first leg and were keen to get back into the fray as quickly as possible. The Sulwalds were back in action just as Linton Draper and Peter Smith appeared on the scene. The Draper entry was closely followed by JJ Volmerans and Steve Cooper, who were going like a train and were suddenly in contention for overall honours.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a flat out dice between Schilling and myself. But he started showing off a bit back there and he took out the gate post.
Jaco's the man who drinks
As with any form of motor racing, crews like to get in and out of the service area as quickly as possible. Time wasted in the pits has to be made up out on the course, and the result of a race often hinges on how much time teams spent in the service area. Out on the course, the Sulwald brothers were out to make up for time lost on the first leg. Weight patches were few and far between on this year's Barberspan, with the race the driest for many seasons. After running at the front of the field for long periods, Stan Illman and Franz Stangl were slowly but surely losing ground in the Carrera Motors raceco. The Porsche motor powering the raceco was starting to sound a little rough, but there was nothing a frustrated Illman and Stangl could do but soldier on as best they could. The Illman-Stangl car was rapidly being hauled in by Linton Draper and Peter Smith, who were having a tremendous run. Draper and Smith were never out of the top 10, but there were occasions when Draper was forced to curb his natural tendency to race flat out all the time. With no windscreen, the wet patches also provided a bit of a problem for both driver and navigator when it comes to visibility. JJ Volmerans and Steve Cooper don't often encounter wet conditions in Botswana. Apart from making traction difficult, the wet and muddy sections often play havoc with a car's electrical system. Volmerans and Cooper also treated the wet patches with respect, but it was an impressive performance by the pair, who were smooth and consistent throughout the race. Nick Harper and Richard Hill were still going along steadily in the Pro-Am Electronics raceco. On corrected time, the pair were also holding down a place in the top 10, in a car in which Richard Schillin and Ashley Thorne previously raced with tremendous success. Franz Chepek Sr. and Jr. were also progressing smoothly in the V-Motors raceco, and were aiming at a top 5 finish. Robin Houghton were desperately trying to force themselves into the top 10 and were involved in a terrific scrap with Wade Perrins and Derek Frankenberg in the Lalette Sandmaster. Little battles like this had developed throughout the field, with Perrins and Frankenberg also trying to haul in Class B leader Craig Hopkinson. Scything their way through the field were the brother and sister team of Marius and Margie Borain in the Toyota raceco. The pair started almost at the back of the field after running into a gearbox problem in the time trial. They borrowed a spare gearbox from Nardus Albert and then set about some serious racing. Crews like the Sulwalt brothers made it to the finish ahead of Borain and his sister, who were 13th on the road. The Borains finished the race on 3 wheels and on corrected time were declared the winners, and immediately found themselves in the middle of a controversy. A protest was lodged against the Borains on the grounds that they didn't clock into the overnight impound area prior to the race. This carries a time penalty, and the results are provisional, pending an appeal hearing by AA Motorsport, the controlling body for motorsport in South Africa.